Hey everyone, Regal Reviews here. It is Right Rice Wednesday, which means it is time for my Survivor recap. So to recap on this week's episode, it basically is off with Debbie going home last week. I was so sad to see her go home because I was Team Debbie. And it basically, the episode started off with, of course, idol talk because, Jason, Ty, and Scott revealed they have the two idols and they can create a super idol. So the next morning, Scott, I guess in his mind, offers Aubrey a deal, saying that if Aubrey sides with them and gets Sydney to go home, everything will be normal back to camp, which means the whole tribe will get food again. So that basically, he was telling her that if things don't go his way, him and the guys are going to throw another temper tantrum. I'm like, these guys are being so bratty. I mean, I just don't get it at all. And I guess we can go to the reward challenge. The reward challenge was quite interesting because Jeff actually gave them a choice. They could play for food, they can play for love, which if they won, they would get letters from home, or they'd get an advantage to the game. And it was Julia and Joe competing for letters from home. It was Scott, Jason, and Michelle competing for food, and Ty, Aubrey, and Sydney competing for an advantage. And we don't know what the advantage could be. It could be a clue immunity idol, could be just, a regular advantage in the game. And Joe was the first one out, and I kind of feel bad for Joe because in all these challenges, he's always the first one to go. So Julia, by default, gets letters from home. And Jason and Scott drop out, so Michelle then gets to enjoy a cheeseburger and fries. And again, what's with the unhealthy food rewards? So it came down between Ty, Sydney, and Aubrey for the advantage. And Sydney dropped out, so it was between Ty and Aubrey. And Aubrey said that, she's been out here 27 days. She wants to prove something to herself. She's out here to prove that she can do this. And, it was a great job in both parts, but it ended up Ty who got the advantage, and Scott and Jason were like, that's what we wanted to happen. We wanted Ty to get the advantage. And I'm like, these guys are so full of themselves. So when they go back to camp, the guys want Sydney to go home, but now they're seeing that, Aubrey is a threat and that she does do good in challenges, so they now want to see Aubrey go home. So in the next immunity challenge, they're hoping that Aubrey doesn't win. The girls, well, actually it was Julia who approached them saying that she wants idols fleshed out, and she suggested to go for Ty in the next tribal council. And Aubrey was debating about this because Julia is a double agent and can't be trusted, but makes a valid point that the idols do need to be flushed. So they're debating what to do, and of course Julia goes to the guys and tells them that they're all going to vote for Ty, and I just can't stand Julia. And it turns out Ty's advantage is that he gets an extra vote, and it's kind of similar to Stephen Fishback's last season when he got an extra vote because he got to steal a vote from somebody at tribal council, which means they didn't get to vote, but it just seems like Ty gets an extra vote. So he does hold a lot of power in the game. I mean, he has an idol, and now he has an advantage. The one thing I didn't understand about Ty, though, is why he gave his idol back to Jason. I mean, they both gave him, Jason gave Ty his idol last tribal council, so Ty, there had two idols, and Ty gave it back to Jason. I was like, why? You had two idols right there in your hand. So the immunity challenge was crucial on both parties, and the immunity challenge was another difficult balancing game, and they had to hold their hands like this, and it was only their fingertips holding these ceramic pots up, so if their fingers moved in the slightest, they'd be out. And, of course, Joe was the first one out, and, again, you feel bad for him. And it ultimately came down between Aubrey and Jason, and I have to give them both credit because they were up there for like an hour and 15 minutes, and I know that wasn't an easy challenge to do, so I have to give both of them credit, and it was definitely neck and neck for a while. They were both slipping. I believe at one point they even had like, a spit off or spitting competition, and in the end it was Jason who won immunity. So again, he thinks that they hold all the power. But what was interesting is that I mean Jason and Scott, told Julia that the next time Ty doesn't win immunity, he's going home. So it's actually kind of sad that they're basically using Ty just for his idol so they can get further in the game. And you kind of wish Ty would see past that. And Aubrey had a talk with him in the morning, and they seemed like they had a great connection, like they could work together. And later, after the immunity challenge, when, like, before they're going to go to tribal council, Aubrey and Ty had a talk, and Aubrey said to Ty that these people are despicable, and, she knows that that's not who Ty is, and that he shouldn't be associated with him, because eventually they're going to have to cut him loose. And Ty he does have a good heart, and he's honestly so confused at what to do, because he wants to move further in the game, but he also wants to remain loyal to Jason and Scott because he's afraid of the repercussions if he does go against him. And Aubrey then says that they're going to vote for Scott. And that was a bit of a bold move to tell Ty because he was a little bit indecisive. And, that made me think of the whole super idol thing going on. They assume that Ty's going to use his idol for them. I mean, Ty doesn't have to use his idol for anyone. He can just use it for himself. I mean, who says he has to use it for you guys? And I found it kind of sad when Ty was trying to talk to Jason and Scott about strategy and say what, try to pitch them an idea, and Jason and Scott didn't want to listen to Ty at all, and they decided to go another route. So they're not even listening to Ty. They don't even see him as value. So I was kind of hoping that Ty would go with Aubrey and the others. And tribal council, I was happy to see Debbie again, from being voted off last week. And, the topic of idols was obviously discussed. They had their normal discussions like a tribal council, and, when it got time to vote and the votes were cast, I got to give Aubrey credit because she outsmarted Julia. I mean, she was under the impression that Ty was going to go home, and right before the votes were read, when Jeff says, if anybody has a hidden immunity idol, you want to play it, now's the time to do so, she kept urging Ty to play his idol, and Scott was saying, no, don't play it, and Ty didn't play it, and thank God he did not play it. And Aubrey ended up getting 2 votes, obviously from Jason and Scott. Ty ended up getting 2 votes, and Scott ended up getting 4 votes, so we think Scott's going to go home. So now would be the time to combine and do the super idol, because Jason gave Scott his idol in case, anything went down a tribal, if anything happened to either of them, Scott and Ty would be protected. But Ty didn't use his idol for Scott, and he kept that idol for himself, so Scott got sent home, and I was so happy to see Ty make that move, and I was so happy to see Scott go home because he just acted like a whiny baby to me, and was just really all high and mighty and full of himself, in my opinion. And I'm glad to see that Ty didn't let anybody tell him how to play his game. He played his own game and made the best decision for himself. The previews for next week show that, and pardon my language here, but Julia is a major bitch. Obviously, Julia and Jason are now on the bottom, so they're looking for revenge, and they said when Ty goes home, they're gonna kill Mark, who is Ty's pet chicken that he has on there. I'm like, she's such a cold-hearted bitch. I mean, these people are whiny babies just because their friend's gone. I mean, it's a game, people. This is what happens. So I definitely think Ty could win this game because he is doing great in challenges, and he is definitely playing a great social game. He has not made any enemies yet. And, you know, he's just a very likable guy. Aubrey, I'm hoping she can go far in the game, and what I admire about Aubrey is that she's had her name written down so many times at Tribal Council, but she doesn't let that get to her, and she does not give up. That only makes her want to focus on her game and play harder. And Aubrey is playing a great game. She's definitely has a strategic mind. I mean, she can see through people and know if they're being truthful or if they're, you know, a backstabber, you know, like Julia. And she's also doing great in challenges too, so I'm hoping she can make it to the end. And I'm also hoping Sydney can make it out there. I think she's playing a great game. She definitely knows what she's doing. They haven't confirmed if it'll be a final 3 or final 2 yet, but I'm hoping if there's a final 3, I'm hoping Aubrey, Scott, and Ty make it far in the game. Make it to the final 3 is what I'm trying to say. I'm definitely hoping Julia gets voted off next week because I really can't stand her. She's just so conceited, and she's just letting everyone do everything for her, and she's just not trustworthy. And I'm so glad, you know, Aubrey has her head in the game and can see past that, you know. I mean, she could see right through her is what I mean. So I'm very curious to see what will happen next week. I hope you guys enjoyed tonight's Survivor like I did. And I hope you guys enjoyed this recap. If you want to catch Survivor, it is on Wednesdays, 8 p.m. on CBS. Like, subscribe, and remember, stay regal.